What's going on YouTube? In today's episode, I'm actually gonna go through and show you guys every single detail that I have done on this car since I owned it and since it has been swapped. So I have been asked a lot of questions and about a couple of details that I have to go through, and hopefully I can explain to you guys most of the stuff that I have been done. So most of you guys have been watching. I'll say about maybe 3 people are watching. Is probably gonna be interested in how I actually run this car. What I mean by that is how much power we're going, what kind of turbo size we're running, what kind of injectors we're running, what kind of transmission and clutch and stuff like that are running. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this episode that I'm gonna show you guys. And well, let's dig into this. Well, I don't know where to start from. Should we go through power barn or should we go through interior? Let's go. Well, I think is the most interesting part is the engine bay. So let's go dig into this and see what we got. Alright now, well, let's just go ahead and stick our peppers in it and let's go see what we got and most of the details. Hopefully it all looks good. Well, okay. Alright. Interesting. Sweet. Well, let me get you guys in here and let's see what we got together. Okay, all right, that's what we got, guys. All right, now hold on a minute. I know that it looks good and everything, but every single beautiful thing does have is upside downs and bad things that we probably don't like. So let's talk about this. All right, hold on a minute now. Let's look at this and figure out what we like or what I don't like, in my own opinion, about my own car, the ways that I might have done differently. If you guys are actually, if you guys are watching, maybe 3, 4 of you guys, that guy. If you guys are watching, maybe you guys want to do it differently. Maybe you guys want to do something more better. Hopefully I can explain and show you guys what would be the better way of doing this. And of course, all of you guys are watching, is the budget way. What will be the best way so it doesn't impact your pocket. All right, so on this engine, let's just start with the turbo. And that's the one that goes, everybody likes it. In other terms, it's just called the snail. I know, right? Snail is slow. Anyway, so this turbo right here, it is a 6266 precision journal bearing turbo. I bought this first when I got the engine swapped, and this specific turbo has been serving me for 4 years. All right, now let's get that sink in, guys. 4 years. 4 years of this turbo has been blasted about, been pulls hard, been hot, every kind of weather, and this thing's been going crazy good. And I can probably bring you guys closer as you can. Let me see if I can spin this with one fat finger. Still has no vibration, still have no shaft play or anything like that that will put this turbo off getting another one. So over here, as you guys can see, we got a little bit of surface rust, and that's just normal, is because I got holes in my hood and the rain goes directly boom into the turbo. Yes, I know. Okay, hold on a minute now. I know if the rain goes in here, it'll suck into the turbo. I agree with you guys, but I usually have a filter and I usually put a small cover on top of that, so that way the rain will go in and hopefully it doesn't go into the turbo. And of course I usually don't try not to drive in the rain time, so that way, rain is not really fan of the hot turbos. Anyway, all right, hold on a minute. Let me get you guys a light so we can see better. That's much better. All right, well, let's go down here. Another second favorite thing on the turbos is the wastegate. As long as you got a good wastegate, your turbo will be perfectly work in order. You won't overboost, or you will not have issues like, hey, I can't get the boost or anything like that. So since I have the precision turbo, I actually went ahead and bought a precision 44 millimeter wastegate. This thing has been working at the same time as the turbo. So 4 years, been beating on it, and everything is working flawlessly. And going down to the exhaust system, this is all custom made exhaust system. So this is at the moment, this is a 3-inch. As you guys can see, it's a 3-inch, goes all the way down. Don't have any resonators, don't have anything else. The car just sounds amazing. Don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. So that's a 3-inch all the way down to the muffler, and we'll talk about that muffler a little bit later on. All right, let's come back to ignition system. Ignition system is the most important. Okay, guys. All right, listen. All right, listen to this. The ignition system in your car is the most important thing that you need to have your car properly working. Because if you can't burn that fuel as much as you need, you will never gain or achieve your power goals. All right, sometimes you'll have issues like you can't burn enough fuel. You'll have like a spark blowing off and stuff like that. Or most of the time, if your ignition system is really bad, you'll notice that your spark plugs actually going black. Okay, and that's usually, yes, exactly. That usually happens, and that guy gets it. That usually happens because your coil system or ignition system actually pretty weak. Okay, so let's talk about this one. So what I did on this car, 2JZs usually come with the normal coil unplug thing, but they only have 3 coils, so because it's a wasted spark, they come with wasted spark system, and you have 3 coils, direct plug-ins, and then that plug-in coils have these little wires that goes into the wasted piston technically. And the wasted piston, usually like wasted spark, technically talking about it, the wasted spark is actually good. If you keep it maintained and strong, it'll probably get you about 700 to 800 horsepower, no problems. But you need really strong system. Like good spark plugs, you might need to change the spark plugs very often to make sure everything is working perfectly. Stuff like that. So this IGN-1As, these are IGN-1As, one of the best. Okay, and listen to me, fellas. This is one of the best upgrade you can do to any of your cars. All right, any upgrades. It doesn't matter if you're turboed, non-turboed, NA, whatever, boat. People do that, boat or whatever. And IGN-1As is the best way you're gonna get your power. All right, the best way, technically best power to the buck, whatever money you got. And they're not really expensive. All right, pretty much you can get the whole coil system. Maybe $600-700 talking about it. $600-700 to get to whatever you want, and you can throw any type of boost you want. If you guys look around, even the drag race cars use IGN-1As, like literally every single one of them use IGN-1As. So the way I did this, let's go back in here. So the way I did this, okay, so this guy right here, this one is a billet. It's a billet made piece. All right, it goes right on top of your motor, and you have every single coil sitting in parallel to each other, so that way you have these little slots. All right, let me hold the light. I gotta do better at this. All right, all of these wires gotta go through these little slots right here to go into the spark plugs. So this is one thing a lot of guys won't tell you, but I would. When you're running your coils, okay, so the distance between your coil to your spark plug is very important. All right, So let's say your coil is running at 49,000 watts, right? That's what the heat range is and stuff like that. If you run the wire, let's say your piston one is, let's say, for example, it's 3 inches away, okay? If it's 3 inches, and you put the, let's say, piston 3 on 6 inches of wire, now that the voltage needs to travel a lot longer to get to the same distance. So usually what happens is your piston will be running colder. I mean your spark plug, right? Okay, fix me if I'm wrong, guys, now. And that's what happens. So usually you don't want that. You're trying to achieve so every single wire and coil are exactly the same length. Of course, if you do have coil and plug, which goes directly on top of your spark plug, then you don't have to worry about nothing. I know most of you guys are asking, how come you just didn't go with the R8 coils, which is Audi R8 coils? So 2 things, okay? I wanted to go, my power goals are way up there. I'm trying to see if I can achieve that. So R8 coils are really good. There's nothing wrong with them. And they will probably would fit much better on over here. So most of the guys, like if they're trying to swap to a 2JZ, if they're trying to swap to a 2JZ, you really don't have a lot of space, especially on an FRS, because the hood and everything else is not designed for this motor. So if I would go with the R8 coils, I might have much better spacing in here, so I don't have to modify my chassis, which we'll get into it in a second. But I wanted to go with this because I always liked the way 2JZs looked. Just this look right here is one of the best looks, in my opinion, of course. It just looks right, you know what I mean? That's exactly why I went with the IGN-1A coils and not the R8 coils. So, in my opinion, is the best way, because that way I don't have to go in and change the coils again if I do have any issues. And plus, R8 coils are not that cheap. All right, so if they do go out, they're pretty expensive. So let's move on to the breeders. So there's breeders right here that most of the 2JZs, most of the engines do have. You have to have this. All right, guys, you do have to have this, because what happens is when you put so much boost into your motor, when you put a lot of boost into your motor, that pass-by pressure going from the pistons, it needs to go away. All right, it needs to come out of the motor. And if you don't have a good ventilation, it usually will start blowing up the gaskets, the valve covers will start leaking, or the oil cap will start leaking, and nobody likes that when you have clean engine bay. So that's exactly why I went with this route. So these are dash 10s all the way up to this breeder or oil catch gun in other ways. They both go into that, so that way all the oil and everything else gets catched in there, and it breeds out pretty easily, pretty free, so that way I don't have to worry about that blow-by coming through anymore. Okay, all right, let's go around to cam gears and the timing belt. So this timing belt right here, I'll put this light better. Sorry guys, I'm not a professional. I'm trying to do this the best way I can. See if I can explain to you guys. So this belt right here, this is a, let me think, what was this? This guy right here was, the timing belt right here is a gritty timing belt, which is really good. Most of the 2JZ guys will use this. It's really strong, and it can withstand whatever you throw on it without slipping or ripping or whatever the deal is. Timing gears, these guys are Eagle Racing. They're billet. They're really light. 2 things about that, as if you can reduce the rotational mass from your engine, you save, basically you becoming safer, so you don't blow anything or tear anything apart. So this is a really good system to where you run it. And the good thing is you have these little bolts. All right, these are sleeved. What I mean by sleeved is they have this little oval shaped oval shaped holes. So that way, if your timing is like, let's say, tooth off or half a tooth, whatever, if you want it to be that solid, you actually loosen these up and you can rotate the whole motor and set it to whatever you want. Plus, this is a really good system. So if you want to do, like, let's say if you have really oversized valves, overlap is the timing you have to do, because if you don't do that, the valves have a chance of hitting each other. So what happens is when the valve opens, the outer valves are closing, right? So at this same time, when this one is closing and this one is opening, one of them might hit that other one. So that's why it's very important, all right? It's very, very important that you actually time these correctly, all right? If you don't do it, all of your money and everything will go to waste. And nobody wants that, especially, and this is another crucial thing you have to do, is on 2JZs, the billet, the tensioner for the timing belt is right there, all right? I don't know if I can show you guys enough, but it's right there. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's right there. And so it has this little tensioner that you can actually use. OEM tensioners that are really, really good. They're not a problem. But the tensioner itself that actually pushes on the belt, it's actually cast aluminum, all right? And most of the time when this belt actually vibrates, because it does vibrate, when it vibrates, you have a chance of snapping that tensioner off, all right? And it's not good. Once that's snapped, all the valves go to crap and everything else is done. You're pretty much done. You have to rebuild the whole system. So what you can do, you can actually jump into Real Street Performance, and they actually have really nice billet piece that replace that. And then you have no worries about timing coming off or anything snapping in that system, that everything works fine. And it's not that expensive, guys. It's only like 80 bucks if I remember correctly. That's how much it usually costs. Trust me, do that. That's like a cheapest, safest, like the safer way to do it, so that way you have no worries about stuff like that. So this coolant system, all right, so this coolant system right here is still OEM 2JZ neck right here, water neck, and then it goes into this little tube that routes back around into the OEM, where the FRS OEM radiator neck thing used to be. So this right here, probably the cheapest and easiest way you guys can do. So that way, if you guys don't spend money on making stuff up from aluminum or welding and stuff like that, that's usually becomes pretty expensive. So in future, which is right now, the car is actually going to go to sleep because we're pretty much calling winter, and winter time is when this car gets modified and upgraded and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do on this one, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to cut this neck, all right? This right here, you can actually buy the billet necks that goes from here into like a dash 20, I believe. Dash 20, and other terms is a AN 20. It goes in here and you can bolt it up and you can actually run AN lines, which is a lot secured, and you don't have to worry about the pressure popping these off or anything like that. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna buy, or I'll probably cut this right here. I'll cut it right here specifically, and I'll add a dash 20 in here, and I'll take the radiator apart, and I'll actually weld another one, dash 20, right here. So that way it'll run directly straight. So that way I can move all of this inboard more, so it's not looking all crowded in here. So I can put my filter and stuff like that goes in here without no issues. So that's the plan for that coolant. And the bottom one, get the light for you guys. So bottom one is right there, okay? Pretty much the same system. The water neck goes in there, routes around, comes back all the way back to the bottom of that. In this situation, guys, if you do swap your 2JZ FRS trying to do stuff like that, what you can do, you can search around, find, let's say another same size radiators, maybe a little bit thicker, same size radiators that have inlet and outlet in exactly the same side. So if you do that, so that way your whole, like the routing thing and the pipes and come around to the other side, you have none of that. So you can just go directly from the bottom of the neck with the water outlet and directly into the radiator. And you can do exactly the same with this. As you guys can tell, see how long this is now? All right. I mean, more coolant you got, much better, because you got a lot more cold cooling going in and out. But I just don't like the look of this. This was just like a normal start off and see what I can go with this kind of deal. All right. And then that's what I did. So it's been serving pretty good. I have no complaints about it. But it's kind of, if you look from the front, it kind of looks pretty ugly. It sits right in front of you. All right. I feel like it's terrible. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change all of this. But if you guys doing the swap, I would suggest you guys do it right away. So that way you don't have to deal with it later. This is the cheapest way. The other one's a better way. All right. And better look way, pretty much. So this is a steel OEM overflow tank that I had from my FRS. It still works great. You don't really need any fancy anything like that. But they do sell like a billet overflow tanks that you can just bolt it in right here and it will sit much better. But because we got this little oval thing for the coolant neck, you can't really come back too far. That's why it needs to sit right here. That's why I had to make my own connectors. So that way it kind of holds it in place. And that's exactly how I had to run these. So that way it's not in my way and everything's good. You need to have this, guys, because if you don't have it, the cap works fine. But if you don't have this, it usually sprays if you're under boost and it goes directly into your turbo. Not good. Plus, this cap right here, every time you buy this, because you can buy these necks for 2JZ swapped FRS, the OEM cap, they say it works. It doesn't. It really doesn't. The cap little spring with the valve right there is way too short. And it just sits way above that line when it needs to block this off. It sits way above the line, so all the water and everything just comes off. It's terrible system. Trust me, I tried to do everything in my hands trying to prevent that, but it just didn't work. So this cap right here, you guys will be surprised. This is a Mazda MX-5 cap. I know, right? It's crazy. So this one is an MX-5 cap, and it's exactly the same length. So it goes all the way down, and it locks this. So that way now you don't have all that water coming out and blowing this apart and everything and filling it up, whatever. So it fits perfectly, okay? And you can buy this. I can probably show you right here. This is what its name is. Let me turn this just a touch. There you go. So that's what it is, and it's a 22 PSI, which is plenty to hold all the PSI and boost and water pressure, whatever you have in there. So once we have all the water stuff and cooling system out of the way, let's talk about our fans, how we cool this system. So I went through a lot of fans, okay? First of all, I bought Mishimoto, the whole shroud and fan system, and I installed it. With the 2JZ sitting really, really close, I really didn't have a lot of space to put those with the shroud. And then what I did, actually, if you see right here, my radiator and fans are sitting straight. If you guys go out and look at your FRS and with the stock motor, they're kind of tilted more towards the motor. So they technically sit like that, all right? That's how they sit. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that with the 2JZ. So that's why I had to make my radiator, intercooler, and AC condenser move way forward. So it's technically sitting right about this line right here. So that way I have this much space to do whatever I want to do. So these Mishimoto fans, they didn't really work. What happened is they weren't strong enough to cool off the system. And then I went and bought like a 14-inch one fan, like they usually BMWs use. I bought one of those to see if it will help with the shroud. Didn't do none, really, none. The car was still overheating. Like especially was overheating when you were parked. You know what I mean? Like when you drive through whatever, like 2 minutes later, it starts overheating. You have to have the heater on and stuff like that and try to cool it off. And that's when the fans were like, it was working nonstop, like 24/7, 7-Eleven style. And it wasn't doing none. So finally did a little bit of the research and a little bit of measurement to see what I can do, which will be the better to cool off the system. So finally, I went into Summit Racing, went through their fans and started searching to see what will be the best way to cool. So now, and then I went and bought these fans. They're exactly 12-inch each. They're about 4 inches thick. And these fans are actually not brush fans. They are electric, so they're magnetic fans, which means you have tons of hours on these fans before they go out, okay? And they're called SPAL fans. They're 12-inch each, okay? They're, as you can see how thick they are, most of the fans are not that thick. So that's why I was limited with space. So I had to move my radiator a lot more forward, about maybe an inch or two to get that more space in there. If you can see from this side, it looks like it's touching like the AC pump, right? But it's not. I promise you, we got like 1/4 of an inch or whatever. I have a space in there. And these fans did a great job. I love them. I mean, as soon as I installed them, I parked my car, started up. I let it run for maybe 45 minutes straight. All right. Didn't have no overheating issues. Didn't have no other issues. But only issue I had after I installed the fans, the only issue I had when I was driving for a longer time, the coolant was getting too hot. Okay, the coolant was getting too hot is because the engine is way too crowded, and fans, when they work, they blow directly into the engine basically, and you have nowhere to escape. So they were going directly into that, and the engine was getting hot in over long runs. So I thought about it a little bit more and thinking, what does other race guys do? Yeah. Finally, Summit Racing suggested I use engine ice. Okay. I said, okay, all right. Went into Google. Google is our buddy. I went to Google and searched engine ice. There's a lot of people say good things, and there's a lot of people say bad things. So what a lot of people do, they use engine ice in their normal car, okay? Normal car, you don't need engine ice. Your normal car will just work perfectly fine without overheating. So that's why there were fans were kick in real quick. It cool off in like 5 seconds and it'll shut off. So it'll continuously do that non-stop. Is because the coolant cools off way too faster. The fans will shut off real quick. But in this application, when your engine is really crowded, as you can tell, I don't have a lot of space in here for the fans to blow that air and escape. Even though I did like holes and a bunch of different stuff. Still didn't work very well. So I did, I flushed the whole system. Okay, you got to get rid of all the old coolant. They usually say about like 95% needs to be cleaned up and you have to use engine ice. So finally, as soon as I put engine ice, guys, I never ever had an issue. Never. This engine was perfectly fine. Drive-throughs, stopping for hours in traffic, whatever, no issues whatsoever, even at 100-degree weather. Nothing at all. So that's why I suggest you guys, if you guys do have an overheating issue in your car and you don't know what to do, get engine ice. Trust me, you like it. It's a really good system. A really good way to cool off crowded engine bay, basically. It's like when I eat ice cream sometimes. Anyway, so let's go with that and more. So as soon as you, pretty much we got, what we got in here is we got most of the electric stuff, okay? Everything in here is electric. So we don't have mechanical fans, mechanical things, and coils are need a lot of more power. So that way I started having power issues, okay? And most of you guys might have the same thing. So let's move out here. And that right there is my new alternator. The OEM alternators are I believe they're about 90 amps, all right? They're 90 amps. This guy right here is 325 amps. Okay, maybe you guys are asking why I went too high. Is because in the future is going to have more electric stuff, and I didn't want to change the alternator again, deal with kind of stuff again, and stuff like that. And what I'm going to tell you guys, all the electric amperes that we have over here, okay, you guys calculate this, all right? Put it in your phones to see how much we're actually taking off this, so that way you guys will understand exactly why it went that high. Okay, so that's why it's a 325, so you can keep up with everything else. My fans, each fan over here are dragging 45 amps each, okay? So OEM FRS, they do have, the relays are right here for each fan, okay? There weren't enough, okay? So what I did, I used my OEM relay to get another relays right there for each fan. So that way I improved it, so just in case if something happens, I got enough juice to power these fans 100%. So that's where I went like that. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using the OEM relay as a switch. So when the engine gets hot, the computer knows it and it goes, hey, I gotta turn on the fan. Boom. It sends a signal straight to the relay, and relay sends it to custom made relays, and then that turns on the fans. And then other than these two fans, I actually have another fan that goes into, see if I can get you guys closer. Right there. See, that's my oil cooler. Oil cooler has his own fan as well. So those are about, I believe they're about like 10 amps. And I got a fuel cooler about somewhere over there. I'll show you guys. Probably down here will be easier to see. Can you see that? All right, that's a fuel cooler. So a fuel cooler has his own fan as well. Okay, you guys thinking why I need a fuel cooler? Let's talk about this. All right, let's talk about this. So fuel cooler. Fuel cooler is very, very important in a build like this. Why, you ask? All right, cool. Fuel gets hot. Okay, simple as that. Fuel gets really, really hot, especially in a hot day, in a hot engine bay like this with tons of boost. It gets really, really hot. So what happens is when your fuel gets hot, it actually starts boiling inside your fuel rail. In your tank, it's above like 140 degrees, about somewhere around there, and it's not good. So when it goes into the hot engine, now you get that extra combustion that you don't even need. And that's when you have the engine starts receiving knock. And knock is not good, guys. That's how you blow your stuff up. So that's why I installed a fuel cooler to try to cool the fuel before it goes back into the tank. Okay, so that way I can keep the fuel at exactly same degrees without having too much going up. And I also installed a fan, like I told you, so it's trying to keep it cooled a little bit longer, or better, other ways, a little bit better. And that actually worked really nicely, because before I didn't have a fuel cooler, and I was going into maybe in build car like this, we'll say limp mode technically, where the engine was running lean because the fuel that was going in basically was becoming vapor. You know what I mean? Was becoming vapor, and the engine was going lean and you couldn't drive anywhere. So I had to stop, get like fresh fuel, cool it off a little bit, and then go from there. And then when I installed this, I never had that issue anymore. I never had to stop, I never had to do anything else, and it was just working flawlessly, for my opinion. It never had any issues. So go ahead and install a fuel cooler, guys. Trust me, you will like it. If you do run into some kind of issues when you go on lean, when you drive a little bit longer for 30 minutes or an hour and you start getting that lean mode, that's because your fuel is getting hot. Yeah. Okay. So what happens is the fuel comes directly from 8 a.m. all the way back from the tank. And then I'll talk about what kind of fuel pumps I have, what kind of system going from there. But now we got 8 a.m. coming directly, okay, comes straight into the rail. 8 a.m. goes in here on this end, into the fuel rail, okay, comes out of the middle, goes back into the flex fuel sensor, which is right there. It goes in there, and then it comes out of the flex fuel sensor and goes back into the cooler, and then after the cooler it goes back into the tank. So it does a whole circle before it goes back into the tank. Now, because I have all this line of fuel, it's technically cooling off before it even goes to the tank. So that way it kind of helps a little bit more to cool out that fuel. So that's how the fuel system works at this end. So the throttle body we got over here, this guy is a GM 90mm LS4 throttle body. Most of the throttle bodies, when you go high boost, they start to close on you guys. All right, it starts to close, and that's not good, because if you do that, it's not good, because you're gonna have a lot of fuel but not enough air. So GM throttle bodies are really good. They don't close under high pressures or anything like that, and it's a 90mm. So you guys can go around and say, hey, I got the biggest one. Anyway, all right, so that's what we got. And then so that was running over here. This intake manifold is a completely custom made exhaust manifold. I'm pretty sure you guys can probably find something like this online. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, that goes into the intake manifold, and then you have, so what I like typically about this intake manifold is that you don't have any of those little bar fittings for like an air system, you know, like when you run your vacuum lines into your fuel rail, fuel rails and stuff like that. It's not on the top, so it's nice and clean. It's all in the bottom. Anyway, it's all in the bottom, so that way it's nice and clean. It's only 3 of them. You don't need any more than that. So you just need one for the map sensor, one for the fuel pressure regulator, and then one for your blow-off valve, if you have it. And then you can actually share a line from a blow-off valve to your wastegate, so that way it kind of works nice and smooth together. It's not a big deal, but map sensor itself needs to have its own line, so it's not interfering with like the blow-off valve opening or stuff like that. So it'll change the map quite a bit. You don't want that. So that's how you can do it. That's why I like this look, because it's nice and clean. Okay, coming up to the injectors. These are FIC's 1650. They're 1650 all around. I actually changed them recently. I recently changed them is because before I was running ID 1000s, and that was pretty good, but I wanted more. Okay, let's hold on a minute. All right, let me tell you something. When you build a car, all right, you say, hey, all I want is 500 horsepower. I don't want anything else. I just want 500 horsepower, right? Okay, cool. You go 500 horsepower, sweet. You love it. It's nice. It's great to drive. And then you go trying to race somebody that has about 500 horsepower, or maybe a little bit more. And then suddenly you lose. Bummer. You lose. Or you get used to the power that you already have. So now you're not getting like wheel spins or anything like that, because you already got used to it. And you start to want to get more. You want more. It's like drugs. Basically, it's like drugs, man. This boost stuff, it's like drugs. Once you get it, you never get rid of it. So I was going like, first I had 12 PSI when I got it. It was exactly 498 horsepower, which was 500 horsepower. And then I wanted more. So I went and got it retuned. We went to 16 PSI on pump gas, and then 22 PSI on E85. On E85, we're pretty close to like 700s, maybe a little bit more. I'm not sure. We never dynoed it. And then after that, I wanted more. Yeah, I wanted more, guys. So recently, probably 3 weeks ago, I upgraded from ID 1000s to 1650 FICs. Okay, and then we went from 22 PSI on E85 to 30 PSI. All right, now look at this. All right, 30 PSI boost. I wanted more, so now it's at 30 PSI. on E85 and 17 psi on pump gas. So that's why I went with higher injectors. So these injectors technically supposed to be good enough for 1100 horsepower. So give or take about that much power, which is actually one of my horsepower goals. Actually, that's how much I wanted to go before I wanted to go more, if I wanted to go more, actually. We're just gonna achieve that first, and then we'll go from there to see if I want more or anything else in the future. Okay, let me show you guys. In the future, this is gonna get a twin fuel rail. So twin fuel rail, why? Okay, so if you go way too big of an injector, your idling and normal driving is gonna be terrible. Okay, usually it's really, really rough, and that's why usually a lot of guys don't daily their cars. If you want to daily, you don't want to go too high of an injector. So what I'm gonna have primaries, which is the first stage, is gonna be 1650s because you can idle them really nicely on these injectors. And my secondaries are gonna be 2200 cc. So that's when we go to 1100 horsepower, whatever. They're gonna be staged. So when it's staged at certain PSI, we'll say 8. All right. At 8 PSI boost, the secondaries will kick in. And then I'll have plenty of fuel to deliver to make the power that I need. So that's the goal for the future. So if you guys do trying to build this, trying to do this kind of system, just measure, all right, guys? Just see what you guys want and do it from the first stage. I know not a lot of guys have a lot of money. No, none of us have, same as me. So if you want to go by stages, if it's only like $300 more, I'd say you save just a little bit more and get that $300 and buy the one you want. So that way you don't have to change for the next time. So you already have the system and everything else, and you can tune it and do whatever you need, and everything will be fine. So that's my suggestion to you guys. So that's what you do. All right, let's move on to this. So the exhaust manifold right here, this is also custom made. That's an exhaust manifold that has a really short runners. All right, I don't know if it's the best way to show you guys, but it got really short runners. So that way I'm trying to keep away from this wiring right here, because all this heat usually melts stuff. As you can tell, I'm trying to prevent that from happening. But that's why I made that really close to the motor, really close to the motor, so that way I don't have that issues running into heating issues with like wires and stuff like that going bad. So that's why they have a short runners, and it works really nice. And as shorter the runners are, better you can spool the turbo. So this guy right here is an AEM boost controller. Okay, AEM boost controller is working beautifully. You can run them as like 1 stage, 2 stage, 3 stage, whatever you want to do, you can run them, and they work pretty nice actually. Really nice, depending on your ECU system, whatever system you got. Maybe one or two or 3 of you guys are asking why I didn't move my battery from here. 2 things. Why I didn't want to move my battery is because most of my wiring system is in the engine bay. Okay, if I moved my battery to the trunk, now I gotta have to run wires from the trunk all the way up to the front. I'm trying to wire something up and it will look terrible. I don't want a lot of wires. If something happens and catches fire, I don't want that to happen inside the car. Okay, so that's why every single wiring that I got in here, all fused and everything else. So if something happens, fuse blows so the car doesn't go burn down to the ground. So that's why exactly I left the battery here. It's not really on my way, so I still have plenty of room to work around it. So that's why the battery is here, if you guys are asking. So the radiator, the intercooler, it is 800 horsepower intercooler. It's pretty thick. I believe this is exactly this is exactly 4 inches. It got 3-inch inlet and 3-inch outlet, and this is exactly how it sits. The way I like this is because you don't have to run a grill pretty much. So this is technically acts and looks like a grill, and it looks nice if you look it from here. So that's exactly what that is. So the way the intercoolers work, guys, let me explain that to you. Usually intercoolers work is how much air they can cool. Okay, it doesn't matter how big it is. It usually works how much air they can cool. So if it's an 800 horsepower intercooler, which means you can cool about 800 horsepower worth of air to go back into the intake manifold, right? So if you go, let's say you go do 900 horsepower, you can still do that much power, but now you're gonna run into issues like the air becomes way too hot, and then you're not actually making any more power, even though you go on higher on the boost. Okay, it just doesn't work that way. But because I have my intercooler in front of my fans kick in and it actually cools the air. So I haven't had any issues with the power I have, with the boost I have, with the hot air going into and not running into like a lean mode or whatever like that. Didn't have that issue so far. But if you go bigger, it's always nicer because you can cool your air much better. So more denser air, more power. That's pretty much how that works. So in here, as you guys can see, I haven't deleted anything at all in this car. I still have ABS, still have AC, by the way. AC is great in the summertime, guys. It's beautiful. Anyway, I got AC right here. That works perfectly fine with the ECU. I got a Motec M130 that runs pretty easy. All you have to do is just grab a purple wire from the OEM FRS wiring harness, run that directly into the AC pump, and boom, you got AC. Simple as that. Fuel regulator, I got full-blown Motorsports fuel regulator, which is good enough for, I believe, 150 psi or something like that, something around there. If I'm wrong, blip it down there in the comments so I can read. And then I got the fuel pressure sensor, so that way the ECU knows what fuel pressure we got. So for safety, so if something wrong, it just shuts off the ECU, the motor, so that way you don't run into any issues. Okay, so that's the head itself. It is, I built the whole head by myself, all right? So the head itself, it's a GTE head, not a VVTi. It is 1 millimeter oversized valves on exhaust and intake. And then I took those apart, I polished, and I polished the valves and made them basically like mirror clean. The reason I did that, you don't really need to, but the reason I did that, so that way all that gunk and stuff has less chance of grabbing into something and sticking in there. That's exactly what I did, and I'll actually put a picture out there for you guys so you guys see before and after how I did them. And then I poured it and polished the intake and exhaust sides. I did racing polish and porting. Maybe you don't have to do that. I just like it because porting polishing actually makes the car sound a little bit better and actually flows a lot better. So when you're tuning, your tuning gets a lot better because the fuel has direct flow straight into the pistons. Doesn't grab into like those edges and stuff like that, like from the factory. The manufacturers doesn't really do a great job of cleaning all that stuff. So you're actually improving all of that by porting and polishing, okay? Maybe in your power levels you don't need it, but I just wanted to technically did overkill. Because my power goals were way up there, okay? That's exactly why I did it. And I would suggest to do that. It's pretty nice actually. It works nice, I never had any issues. And you can actually gain a lot more power when you do porting and polishing. And plus I got 272 cams, 272, okay? It's BC 272 cams all around, sounds nice, and it's been doing power pretty nicely, okay? So that's all the engine stuff that you guys been asking. And so the transmission, okay? The transmission is R154. It's a built R154. When I say by built, it has like billet, shift forks, new synchros, new bearings, new thrust washer, because that's usually what fails in R154 and then everything else fails. So that should be good for 900 horsepower. And then the clutch is actually a drift motion super single, which I love. That clutch. It's been great. It's supposed to be good for 750 wheel horsepower, and I believe we actually made way more than that. I feel like we're making way more than that, but I haven't had any slippage yet because it's technically designed for like a 4,000 pound car, and my car only weighs like 28 or 29,000 pounds, 2,900 pounds. I'm sorry. That's how much you weigh. So you're actually saving a little bit of that from that. That's why I'm not slipping. But that's what the transmission and clutch combo is on this car. Okay, so let's go back to fuel system. I was promising I'll tell you guys what I'm running. So the fuel system on this one is Iridium fuel system. So Iridium actually makes this little basket. If you guys been working on an FRS fuel system, you guys probably know. It has this little basket when you have a fuel pump and everything else sits and goes into your tank. So Iridium actually made that with dual pumps. So you can actually run directly into your pump, into your tank. So you don't have to worry about like leaks or anything like that. It sits like OEM, and all your fuel level and everything else goes in there. And it actually comes with the AEM 340 pumps each. And I did stage them, okay? The reason you want to stage your pumps is because you don't want all that fuel to be flowing at the same time, because more fuel you flow, the hotter it becomes. Okay? So I staged my second pump. So that way it only turns on at 7 pounds of boost. And the first pump is more than enough to drive around and do whatever you want. You just really don't need second pump. Don't need that. That's what my fuel system is. And for the fuel system, because we're upgraded to higher pumps and higher amperage. Hold on a minute. Are you guys still counting how much amperage we got? All right, keep counting. So amperage, I had to run my own wiring. So what I did, I actually grabbed a 10 gauge dual 10 gauge wires from the front, from the battery. I'll show you guys. So this right here, this switch right here, okay, this switch right here is what shuts off the pumps, okay. So I got 10 gauge going into this switch right here, and it goes all the way back on top of the tank. It goes on top of the tank. So, and then I got 2 relays for each pump. So each pump is running about 45 to 50 amps on power. So I grabbed the OEM switch, which is like the relay. OEM relay sends the power to the pump that says, hey, turn on the pump. I use that as a switch to turn on the pumps. So I use that for a first one that will come on normally when you start the car. And the second pump, we actually grab the ground of it. So it's completely wired up to the power. And the ground comes back to the ECU, and it only stages to turn on whenever I have a certain amount of boost running into the engine. So that way it keeps it nice and clean, quiet, and stuff like that. So that's what the whole fuel system is, all right? It's all AEM front to back. I don't like any leaks. And then in the middle of that line, on the fuel line somewhere over there, like somewhere over there somewhere, it is a 10 micro fuel filter. You need that, guys, so that way, even though you have this little fuel basket filter things that comes with the pumps, it's not good enough. So you want to put another filter around in the line, so that way it cleans up. The reason you want to go 10 micro filter is because if you're gonna run E85, you want something like that so you can flow and keep all the dirt and stuff away from your injectors. When you pay $1,300 for your injectors, I know it's expensive. $1,300 for your injectors, so you don't want to clog them up and stuff like that. So that's why you want to run that filter. It's just the precautions, you know what I mean? It's safety if you care about your stuff. Anyway, that's pretty much dials up with the engine and the fuel system and everything else. So now you guys know what I have in here. Still haven't downloaded it. It's 30 PSI. I don't know what power I'm running, but it feels crazy fast. So let's talk about the exterior of the car. So if you guys want to know what wheel size and stuff I'm running, this is 255s in the front by 18 inches, okay? And I'm still running OEM suspension. I never replaced them because you don't really need to, actually. It fits fine, it never rubs or anything like that. I got full turn each way. It never touches anything, doesn't rub or anything like that. It's really, really good. If you go on way bigger than that, you might want to replace the shocks with the springs, because springs are a lot bigger. You might want to replace that, because right now I got about an inch of gap between the spring to the tire. In the back is a different story. In the back it is a 275 by 18, and this one has about exact same amount. It got about inch to half an inch of distance between the spring to this, and it fits really, guys, really nice, guys. Actually, I kind of like that little wide look. It's not really wide body, but it's a wide look, and it never rubs. Actually, it's really nice. I like it. So that's basically what I got for square on all around my car. And carbon fiber, of course, real carbon fiber now. That's pretty much what I got inside of my car. Technically, there's nothing interesting, okay? It looks exactly like a normal FRS and BRZ look like, except maybe those gauges. But everything else in here works as normal, no issues whatsoever. The shifter is still OEM shifter. I just wanted to keep that nice OEM look from inside the car, so I did that, and it works nice. Never had any issues with that. All my gauges work easily, and if you guys want to search on YouTube, that's True Beast. So that's my whole car, guys. That's what I got for you guys. And if I did miss something, on details of what I'm trying to tell you guys, let me know. All right, leave some comments below, and I'll check them out. If I missed something, I'll come back and explain to you guys what it is, and then hopefully everything works out for you guys and for me. Hopefully next summer is the big day. All right, next summer we're gonna have a lot of races going on, and I would like to go into every single one of them. I'm trying to achieve that, and just to see, when you do everything custom, to see how much you can go, like how far can you go, like what kind of a big guys can you race or can you go against, and stuff like that. So this is where I need you guys' support. All right, if you guys like the videos and like to see more and stuff like that, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you guys don't miss out when the new video comes out, and the like, so that way I know you guys like my stuff. 2 or 3 of you guys right there, maybe that guy. Anyway, so here it is, guys. I mean, if I miss something, like I said, let me know. I'll come back and try to explain the best as I can, and wish me luck, man. I'm trying to go as far as I can and show you guys what you can do with when you build stuff in your garage, technically. So yeah, let me know, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.